Hey there, Daniel Fava here, and if you don't know me, I am the host of the Private Practice Elevation podcast, where I share online marketing strategies and interviews to help private practice owners attract more clients and scale their businesses. The Private Practice Elevation podcast is part of the Psychraft network of podcasts, and I'm super excited to be a part of this network alongside Lisa and the great work she's doing. If you haven't discovered the Private Practice Elevation podcast, you can find it wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'd love for you to join me as we explore topics like building an effective website for your private practice, search engine optimization, content marketing, and copywriting, as well as my conversations with experienced private practice owners about scaling a practice, outsourcing, team leadership, and all things that will help you elevate your business and create the life you love. Be sure to check us out at privatepracticeelevation.com for resources and content to help you in your online marketing journey.
Welcome to the Therapy Show podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard. In each episode, I interview a seasoned and knowledgeable talk therapist from the counseling world to glean valuable insights, techniques, and tools that you can apply to your practice and your life. And if you're considering a career in the counseling field or just want to hear about what it's like to be a talk therapist, then this is the podcast for you. Well, hey friends, welcome back to the podcast. As the show started, I hope you heard that intro from Daniel Fava of the Private Practice Elevation podcast. I don't know why I can't wrap my mouth around that podcast name, but Daniel Fava with the Private Practice Elevation podcast. He is one of the many podcasters that has joined our Psychraft network, and his show is great. You can learn all about, SEO, copywriting, all the good things that you need to have an amazing website for your practice. So be sure to check him out. It's been quite a busy week here. If you guys didn't know, I'm dealing with website stuff, as in my website went down. It's still down. We're trying to get it back up and running. I'm really hoping that within the next week or so, my website will be back up and we won't have to go through these workarounds anymore. But in the meantime, I know I've shared a little bit about my workaround. So to listen to the podcast, you'll need to head over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, my Libsyn site, or any of your preferred podcast player, as my show is on all the major players. As soon as my website is back up and running, I will be pointing you back to my website where you can listen. But in the meantime, you can always find the show on any of those podcast players. And like I said, when the website is back up and running, you'll be able to listen to it there. Then on top of the site going down, I was out of town for a couple days last week to visit my mom and stepdad up in Richmond, Virginia, and that's my hometown. And along with spending time with my parents, we took the girls to Colonial Williamsburg. Plus, we got to see the VCU women's volleyball team take on the University of Dayton, which was really fun. We are used to watching the University of South Carolina Gamecocks volleyball team, so it was a really different experience to see a different conference play. We really enjoyed ourselves, and the VCU Rams won, which was really exciting. And my mom had never been to a college volleyball match, so it was really cool for her to see these amazing, exceptional female athletes in action. We go to plenty of Carolina volleyball matches here, and my mom hasn't been down to see us since COVID. So I'm hoping in the next couple of months she'll come down and visit us. And if the season's still going, of course, we'll take her to a volleyball game. But good news for us is that Carolina also has women's beach volleyball. So we get to see a ton of volleyball. It's really fun. So I don't know if you guys know, but I went to VCU for my undergraduate degree. And every time that I go home to Richmond, I love to drive around and see all the new things happening on the campus, because a lot has changed since 1995, like a whole lot. But anyway, so what's new with the podcast? In case you missed it, I released a new podcourse last week that qualifies for one continuing education contact hour. It's titled Back to the Basics, Grounding Therapy in Virtual Play Therapy, and it's with Dr. Rachel Altvater. You can listen to the episode as it's part of my show lineup. And if you decide that you would like the credit hour, just head over to my new learning management platform. Learning management platform. Yeah. And you can see the pod courses that I have available. So just check the link in the show notes. Okay. So this week's episode is with Gordon Brewer LMFT. Gordon has a thriving practice in Kingsport, Tennessee, and he's the host of the Practice of Therapy podcast. He is also the creator of the Psychraft network, and he's a great friend and colleague. And he's been a huge supporter of my podcast since I started, and we connected soon after I launched it. And I've had him on before, and I'm excited to have him back on the show this week. But he's going to talk to us about the Psychraft network, how he helps clinicians start their practices, plus also some tips on starting a podcast. He is a wealth of information and knowledge, and I know you guys are going to learn a ton from Gordon today. Oh, and one more thing before we dive into this episode. Don't forget, you guys, you can get your first pod course for free. And I am a NBCC approved provider. So that means that NBCC is approved by most of the states. So wherever you live, if you need one continuing education contact hour, head over to my site. You can also sign up for that free pod course. You will hop on my email list, and then I will email you a code that you can get your first one for free. So stay tuned. I have more pod courses coming out this fall as well as into the new year. All right, let's jump into this episode. Well, hey, friends, welcome back to another episode of The Therapy Show. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard, and I'm excited to have my friend and colleague back on the show, Gordon Brewer. Welcome back.
Well, thanks, Lisa. It's glad to be back. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, I say it all the time. Social media and podcasting and being in the world of therapy brings some really amazing colleagues into my life. So I'm grateful for you. I'm excited to have you back on the show. I can't remember what your episode was that you were on. It was many moons ago. It feels like it.
Yeah, time has a way of going by pretty quickly.
It does, doesn't it? Oh my
Uh-huh.
gosh. Well, I mean, I can't assume that people listening to my show have listened to your show. So can you share a little bit about your show and I guess what you talk about on the
Sure.
Practice of Therapy podcast?
Sure. So, yeah, the Practice of Therapy podcast. Let's see. I started it, the podcast actually back in 2017. And so we're up to just a little over 250 episodes now. But yeah, when I first started it, I wasn't, I was kind of, back then, I was kind of a little bit skeptical of even starting a podcast and just was, which is kind of a strange thing for me to say. But I thought, well, this sounds fun. I think I'll give it a try. And I've just been blown away at the growth and what it's done to help kind of what I'm doing with my consulting side of things. I have a group practice in Kingsport, Tennessee, Kingsport Counseling Associates. And back in 2016, again, throwing dates out here, is I really decided that I wanted to share with folks kind of what I've learned about being in private practice. I started my private practice back in 2005, 2006. And back then, there really wasn't that much out here about running a private practice, how to do it, how to build, all that sort of thing. And so I decided I wanted to start sharing some of what I've learned and just kind of helping people not have to learn so much the hard way like I had along the way. So that's really kind of how I started the practice of therapy. And it's just kind of grown. And I've kind of, what I've done with it is I've got a lot of free resources there, but also some paid resources, different courses. One that's been a really popular course for a lot of people is Google Workspace for Therapists, where I just teach people how to use the tools of Google Workspace in their practice. Got another one on just the financial side of running a private practice. And here more recently, I've started a membership community for those folks that are just getting started in private practice, and just really recognizing just the importance of community. And that's something that's real important for me, just kind of like how we've kind of gotten to get more familiar with each other here lately, just with our podcasting stuff and what we've done with that. And so, yeah. And so here in 2022, I kind of separated my podcasting and the practice of therapy off into a separate entity and started Psychraft, which is just a name that I came up with, and started a network called the Psychraft Network, where collaborating with folks like you and some others just on promoting our podcasts and helping us build audiences and just in this whole fun world of podcasting.
Yeah, I love it. So cool what you're doing. And it's funny that, I got your email one day and it was talking about the Psychraft network. And I just got so excited because in the back of my mind, I was thinking, first of all, I would love to be a part of a network, and just collaborate and have that sense of community like you're offering us. But then also I think I love the idea of having it as another business income stream. I think it's so smart. And it's funny to me. Yeah. You said 2016 is when you started your podcast and you thought it was kind of like, should I do this or not? I think a lot of people felt that way back then, and they're just so grateful they started and kept with it. And it's never too late to start a podcast, I think. I mean,
right.
Anytime's a good time.
Sure. And really, podcasting is really, on the grand scheme of things, is really kind of in its infancy. And so there's just a lot of room for growth. It's the other thing, too, is that it's kind of replacing when you think about reach and you think about building audiences and you think about what you can do as far as going from the one-to-one way of interacting with people to the one-to-many. It's really kind of replacing blogging as a medium and a way of getting to people, because the one thing about podcasting is that, and folks listening to this, I'm assuming they listen to a lot of other podcasts. There's a sense of intimacy about it that you kind of get in listening and hearing people's voices and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that too. That's probably why I love podcasting, listening to podcasts so much, as I feel like I know these people and that they're part of my life. It's very different, and it's a very intimate setting that I usually listen to podcasts. I'm usually on a walk, and walking for me is my downtime, my relaxing time, or I'm in the car waiting on one of my kids. So it's a private time, and they go directly into my earbuds. I don't have to share it with anybody if I don't want to. It's really interesting. My husband's a big podcast fan, so he kind of got me into listening to podcasts a couple of years ago. And then I was like, I'd like to start my own podcast and just go for it. And so here we are, years later. I think actually this episode might be my 100th episode of the therapy show.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. So that's pretty exciting. I didn't realize that until just the other day when I was typing into Apple Podcasts, you have to put in like which episode is it? And I was like, whoa, I'm getting close to 100 here. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's a good reason to celebrate.
Yeah. So maybe I'll do that this weekend. Kind of forgot about that. Do you have any? I know I definitely want to talk about what you do with your membership and how you help people get started with private practice. But what about someone who's listening right now and is like thinking about starting a podcast? What do you have any just kind of off the cuff tips for them to consider?
Well, I think I think one of the things that happens is that people can be intimidated by maybe the technology of it, that sort of thing. But it's really no different than just recording yourself. I mean, as we're recording this, you and I both use Zoom, and so we're all familiar with Zoom now, and just hitting record and that sort of thing. And so the other thing too is that I think one of the things, if somebody wants to get into podcasting, is to really go into it with a mindset of just being persistent and consistent with it. I mean, I think one of the things is that you really want to really make a commitment to kind of get things out regularly. And that's really, I think, how at least my podcast has grown, is that it's a weekly podcast. And so every Monday, a new episode comes out. And I think in time, what you learn are different shortcuts and that sort of thing of being able to do kind of the production side of things. Certainly you can outsource that. There are tons of resources out there and people that are willing to do the kind of the tech behind the scenes kind of things to help you with a podcast. But I think as much as anything, it's a way for people to kind of give voice to the things that they're passionate about.
Right.
And really have a reach in the world that's really pretty unique.
Yeah. And I love that you say that, because so many people say, well, someone's already doing a podcast about that, or someone's already, and I'm like, yeah, but you have your own unique style, you have your own unique spin on things, you have your own experiences that you can draw from. I think the more the merrier when it comes to podcasts.
Right.
You just have to stick with it and I almost gave up like a while back. I was almost just done. And then I think it was wrong during COVID. I was just burnt out and tired, and work was busy, and my kids were home, and I was like, why am I doing this? And then I just gave myself that time to kind of regroup, and then came back with energy and excitement for it again. So you never know. You never know what it can present. So
right.
cool.
Right. And it's as you kind of maybe alluded to earlier, is that there's a lot of potential for just diversifying your income through podcasting. Once you kind of get a foothold, there are people out there that are willing to pay you to for them to advertise on your podcast. And that's a whole segment that is out there that I've been hearing more and more buzz about, is potential advertisers that are willing to pay podcasters for being on their podcast.
Right. Yeah, that's exciting. I mean, that's a pretty exciting income opportunity, really. I mean, it's to me, it's like when you look at Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, and you have those influencers out there, they're they're getting brand deals to promote or talk about their product, where sponsorship of your podcast is a similar idea. And I think that you're right. A lot of businesses and companies are seeing the value in podcasting. And just because you have a little show in a niche audience doesn't mean that you can't, gain sponsors. I think having a niche show actually, if you like, for us as within our podcast network, I think all of us except maybe one are therapists, and we all do this work. So, it makes sense that maybe a company out there who is trying to reach therapists, recognizes our shows and says, hey, I'd like to partner with you guys, and maybe you can help me spread the word about, my product or service. So there's lots of, like you were saying, lots of ways to do this. Cool. So who has joined the network so far? And can you tell us a little bit about those shows?
Yeah. So of course this impeccable and famous show, the therapy show, was one of the first to join the network, and I'm really thankful for that. Kim Tolson and the Traveling Therapist is part of the network. Also, the Shrink Think podcast with Aaron Potratz and Nathan Hawkins, and they do a great job with their show. The Private Practice Elevation, and that's Daniel Fava, and his show is about helping therapists. Daniel is not a therapist, but his wife is, and his whole thing is helping people with their websites and SEO and being able to market their practices through that medium. I've got my show, which is the Practice of Therapy, and then I have a second podcast called the Kindness and Compassion podcast, which is really geared towards just helping people live into greater kindness and compassion in their lives, and being able to have a better sense of life balance and just feeling more content in life. It's so that was a new one that I started this year, which really was kind of the catalyst to some degree of really thinking about a network and doing it that way. Then James Marlin has got his podcast is not released yet, but he's getting that going, and it's going to be on helping people with course creation and being able to diversify their income streams within kind of the space of private practice and that sort of thing. And I feel like I'm leaving somebody out, and I can't think of who that is at this point.
Maybe somebody who hasn't.
Yeah, there's a few other people that haven't joined the network yet, but I was in conversation with them actually today. So so we're probably going to be growing even more with the network, and I think I'm real excited for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So if someone out there listening right now is thinking, I want to start a podcast, I'd like to join a network, can they check out the information and see if it's for them?
Yes, they can. Just simply go to our website, psychcraftnetwork.com, and they can learn about the other podcasts that are in the network. And then there's also a link on there for you if you're interested in joining the network. You go to that page and you can do a little application, and tell us about what you're doing. And also, if somebody is just in the beginning stages, we're really wanting to help newer people kind of get started in this as well. And so there's plans for some courses and that kind of thing where people can kind of learn about podcasting and how to do it and that sort of thing. So
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And I think what's really fun is that we're all, well, first of all, let me back up. I like how you took our community off of Facebook. I really appreciate that and put it on Circle, because there's so much distraction on Facebook. And half the time, I don't even know what group I'm in, who's running the group, like what's going on in this group. And not to bash the groups on Facebook, but it does get a little overwhelming after a while. And I'm like, what is this group for? What's the mission here? What's the goal? So I really like how you took our community and put it on a platform where it's an intentional place to go to share information, you know, and I love that, how we're all in there when we can, and we're giving information and we're talking about what we're doing. And so I love that. And I really appreciate that. And I love the opportunity to just, like you said, build this community with like-minded therapists. It's really nice and then of course to have your expertise, because you've been doing this longer, and already saying this might be a potential sponsor for us. And I like how it's also, we own our content, and also you've said if the sponsor doesn't jive for you and your show, then you don't have to do it. It's not necessary. Right. It's not like you have to. You can just really join for the collaboration, and it definitely helps, I think, with getting our shows out there. So like when having you on my show helps your show and vice versa. So I think that's really special too.
Right. Yeah. The whole that again, you kind of hit the high points of what really kind of what I hope to accomplish with the network is, number one, community, of being able to just bounce ideas off of people and to feel like you're getting support in what you're trying to do. The cross promotion of really just making other people aware of the other podcasts that are out there. And then to kind of put it in those business terms of monetization, of really being able to figure out ways to where we can help our podcasts not only pay for themselves, but also be profitable for us.
Yeah, that's really nice. I like the sound of that.
Yeah. Yes.
So you have a lot going on. So what happens in your membership for folks that are looking to grow a private practice or start a private practice?
Yes, it's called the Practice Launch Club, and it's again the key word with it is community. And again, I've got a separate private space on the Circle platform that's set up for the Practice Launch Club. But also we do once a month, we have focus groups where we meet on Zoom, everybody, and we have, focus group or mastermind. People refer to it in different ways, but we're able to have people that are on a hot seat and ask questions or something they're working on with their practice. And then also on the Teachable platform, as part of this community, I've got a catalog of lessons and courses and webinars and that sort of thing specific to kind of those beginning stages of starting a private practice, like, just some basic accounting, or how to think about business entities, or how to think about, okay, well, how should I collect payments from people? All of those things that are just little details about starting a practice that we don't learn in graduate school, and unless you're willing to get out there and just kind of learn it all on your own, it's hard to find. And so it's really that whole membership community is geared towards those people that really want the support and the community around building their practice.
Yeah, that's really nice. That sounds like a really nice group. Okay. And if people want to learn more about that, where should they go?
Yeah, they can go to practiceoftherapy.com/launch club and get that there.
Okay. And is it just you that does the webinars and the Zooms, or do you have a team?
So at this point, it's me. I hope to, as we continue to grow, have other people that contribute to that and do some more mentoring and that kind of thing along the way.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And tell me about your group practice. I know you said that you have quite a number of folks working for you.
Yeah, but for some, it might be considered kind of a small group practice, but I've got myself along with 7 other employees that are in my group practice, and we're located in Tennessee, up in the northeast corner of Tennessee, right in the Appalachian Mountains, and it's a place called Kingsport. My practice is Kingsport Counseling Associates, and we serve a fairly diverse kind of population. We do a lot of our therapists are really working more with adolescents and children. I do a lot of marital work and that sort of thing since I'm a LMFT, and so do a lot of that kind of thing. But yeah, it's where we stay busy. Our practice is essentially full, and so we're starting. I've kind of one of the things I'll say here is I'm probably going to have to consider either opening a second location or expanding this location in some way, because we've almost outgrown our space here.
Wow. Is that you think due to, past couple of years, or were you just on that trend that you were growing?
I think it's some of both. I know some of the conversations just with our people in our field. I think one of the silver linings of the COVID pandemic has been people are more willing to talk about mental health issues, and that it's becoming much less stigmatized than it once was. And so, people are able to, reach out and, be open about kind of their mental health struggles, because I think we all experienced it at different levels during COVID and having to be so isolated.
Definitely. Oh yeah. Yeah. I think you're right about that for sure.
Yes.
Okay. Well, this has just been great to catch up with you. I am excited for people to, take a look at the Psychraft network. And I know, we're throwing out all kinds of ideas right now about how we can serve our listeners in the near future. And I know we probably can't, we could talk about it, but we don't have any plans to actually launch anything yet. So if you guys have feedback or would like to offer any type of what you would like for us to do, please reach out to me or Gordon, and we'll talk about it in our circle group and see if that's something that we want to do. So
sure. Yeah. As I like to say, Lisa, we're building the airplane as we fly it. So, that's exciting and fun and risky to some degree, but it's a lot of fun.
It is. And it's just so, when I got your email that day, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is such a wonderful idea. And I was so honored that you reached out to me and asked me to take a look. So I am just so grateful. So thanks, Gordon, for coming on the show. And
thank you for being part of the community. You've just been a rock star with it, I think.
Oh, thanks. I have so many ideas. That's my problem. I'm like the idea fairy, and I get myself in trouble because I get shiny object syndrome. I'm like, no, stop, so it's hard, but
yeah, it is. I have the same trouble.
Yeah. I know my husband's like, could you pick something and focus? Don't go off on this other, start another podcast or do that. And he's right. And he's right. So thanks again for being here, Gordon. I'll put, everything in the show notes for folks to find you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Lisa.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. Hey guys, before we end this episode, if you are liking my content, if you're liking my podcast, be sure to go over and leave me a 5-star review on the podcast platform of your choice. And if you are up for it, I'd love it if you left me a review as well. Well, that wraps up another episode of The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. I know there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm thankful you've chosen to listen to mine.
Be sure to visit lisamustard.com to access the show notes and discover more fantastic content.
And I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the show. Thank you.